What do you do when you're facing an enemy? What do you do when you're facing somebody that's against you and you want to win them over? And it's so hard. It's so hard when it's a family member or when it's anybody, even a mortal enemy. And in this week's parsha, in Parshas VAYIGASH, the Ohr HaChaim opens up a tremendous secret, a secret which is a nuclear power, unstoppable. VAYIGASH Elav Yehuda. Yehuda approached the bench. So what happened was there was this really mean guy. Happens to be he was his brother Yosef, but they didn't know. They didn't know that Yosef is there. They saw this mean guy who's making tons of trouble. He takes away Shimon. He locks him up. He's threatening. He's just, things are really tense. Now he wants to take away Binyamin. VAYIGASH Elav Yehuda, and Yehuda approaches the bench. Yehuda comes closer to speak to Yosef. So the Ohr HaChaim, he says, I don't understand. Until now, what was happening? They were talking to Yosef. He was already talking to Yosef. So what changed? VAYIGASH Elav Yehuda. So, I always looked at it like he moved into him, like he leaned into him, you know? He says something remarkable. Listen to the words. Uvederech drash yisboer. Oimrei VAYIGASH Elav. Al derech oimrei kamayim apanim lepanim kein leiv ha'adam la'adam. There's a klal, Shlomo HaMelech says in Mishlei, a famous idea, kamayim apanim lepanim, the same way that a face is towards another face, kein leiv ha'adam la'adam, so too the heart of man to man. Meaning, basically, if I like you, you like me. If I don't like you, you don't like me. Tosfos actually says that this is a fact and it's a part of the Bria that Hashem created. And there are stories how this was used, which I'll bring down in a different part, not for this part. I don't want to take away from the Ohr HaChaim. But there is a concept. The concept is, if I like you, you like me. It doesn't just mean that if I like you, so then you probably like me. It means that even if you don't like me, if I force myself to like you, you will be forced to like me. Just like water reflects the face of man, so too a heart reflects the heart of man. Which means that if you want to lock me up and put me in jail, and I am your mortal enemy, and you hate me, and I hate you, but if I can love you for real, you can't fake this, then you will be forced to love me. That's what kamayim apanim apanim. It's a weapon. Okay, now watch what happens. Ulazen ischakim Yehuda lahatis leiv Yosef alav l'rachamim. This is the wisdom that Yehuda had. He was wise, that he wanted to change Yosef's heart to mercy. This guy, who they didn't know was Yosef, was so angry at us and so hard and anti us. What's the opposite of merciful? What's the opposite of compassion? That's what he was. And Yehuda said, you know what? He's watching what's happening over here. This is very bad. He's locked up Shimon. He's trapping us over here. He's taking Binyamin. He's going back. We're in big trouble. We're headed for a very, very big problem. And he says, wisdom. Which weapon am I going to pull out? My gun, my knife, my nuclear missile? He says, no. I have a weapon called kamayim apanim lepanim. It's a weapon. It's real. It really works. So he became wise. He says, you know how I'm going to deal with this? I'm going to change this guard, who we thought was a guy. I'm going to melt his heart to change from being hard to being merciful. How? Kamayim apanim lepanim, kein leiv ha'adam la'adam. If I love him, then he's going to have to love me. V'hikriv dato yirutzonai elav, and he brought close his mind and his ratzon and his desire to this, what he thought was a disgusting idol worshiper, mean, angry enemy. I'm going to bring my mind. I can't control him. I'm going to control myself, my mind, my das and my ratzon. I'm going to get closer to him, la'ahavoi u'lechavavoi, to love him, and he should be cherished and beloved to me. Why? Because if that's how I feel about him, he will be forced to feel that way about me. Kedei shetiskarav data shel Yosef elav lekabel dvarav upiyusai. So then that way, this enemy, Yosef, we didn't know it was Yosef, this enemy will be forced to bring his mind closer to me, and he'll accept my words. V'hucher classes came. And he says Yehuda had to force himself. It wasn't easy to do that. Why? By nature, the Bnei Yaakov, this is just a small, remember Klal Yisrael just started. It started with Avraham Avinu, who was anti-Avodah Zarah, broke all the Avodah Zarah, and started monotheism. And he instilled into Yitzchak and Yaakov and Bnei Yaakov a hatred for idolatry, a hatred for idol worshippers. What do I have to do with these people? So just imagine the biggest tzaddik that you can. Imagine Ohr HaChaim Kanievsky, Schus Yagen Aleinu, that he sees that the Italian mafia, right, that stands for everything immoral and unethical that he hates and disgusts, and they abduct somebody, and he wants to go ahead and talk to them, they should release this guy. So people try, yelling at him, threatening him, screaming, it's not going to work. So he says, hang on. There's something that works. It works on Yidden, it works on Goyim. It's in the Bria. Kamayim aponim leponim, kein lev adam la'adam. So imagine Ohr HaChaim Kanievsky goes, and he knocks on the guy's door, and the biggest low-life Italian mobster, murderer, involved in every sinful activity, answers the door, and Ohr HaChaim shines true ava, true love on him. It would be very, very hard to do. Minateva lo yichavu b'nei Yaakov ovdei avodah zarah. Minateva, the natural instinct was that these ovdei avodah zarah, these Egyptian idol worshippers, Eretz haaretz, the greatest tumah in the world. I hate them. B'tachlis sinna sanesi. I hate them with the ultimate of hatred. But I have a problem here. So naturally, I have a hatred towards you. Umimezeg nafsham lisnoi asher b'sar chamorim b'saram. Our natural instinct is to hate them, but I want to accomplish something, and I got to win this war without firing a single bullet. So I'm going to bring myself and force myself. V'hikriv datoi uritzoinoi elov. He brought his mindset and his wants towards liking Yosef, liking this guy, seeing his good, or seeing some goodness, something. To love him, pure love, ulechavavoi, he should be beloved and cherished to him. Why? Because then, if I can manage to do that, he'll love us and then he'll let us go. Therefore he had to lefi sha'a temporarily, to change what is his natural instinct, his nature, to change it, and to approach him, VAYIGASH elav Yehuda bilvavai, with his heart. The chiddush of the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh, VAYIGASH elav, he did not approach him physically. He didn't get closer to the bench. He didn't say, can I approach the bench, Your Honor? His concept was, I'm going to approach him emotionally. Right now, I'm here, and he's 1,000,000 miles away from me. I am so far from loving him. I'm so far from liking him. I wouldn't touch him. We're 1,000,000 miles away. Says the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh. He had to win him over. So temporarily, he had to change his mindset from everything that makes this person disgusting to me to truly like him. Can you just imagine Ohr HaChaim Kanievsky's Chus Yagen Aleinu, or any gadol that you want, smiling and liking and seeing good in this monster. It had to be real. You know why? We're not talking about faking that I like you so you'll be nice to me. We're talking about using a nuclear power of kamayim apanim lepanim, kein leva adam la'adam. So it only works if kein leva adam la'adam. It had to be real. So Yehuda had to not fake it. He had to go from hating this guy, that he was going to murder, that he was going to choke, that he would have killed with his bare hands to rescue Shimon and Binyamin and get them out of this whole problem. And instead of murdering him and killing him and beating him up, he had to be'emes like him, otherwise it doesn't work. And he had to do it lefisha, because I'm not going to like you forever. So I have to really fully like you now, temporarily, and then afterwards go back to my natural state of hating everything that you are and that you represent. Think about how deep this is. It has to be real. And look what happened. After he did this, that he saw the goodness in him, and he saw him as a good person, someone lovable, someone that he could love, someone that he did love, and he felt feelings of ava and what does he say? L'chavavai, beloved. Yosef Taka melted, and that's when he couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't keep on the charade for whatever reason. This is mamish right before Yosef said, "Okay, Ani Yosef." And think about what it's like when we have children that are struggling and challenging us, and parents respond, and people say, fight fire with fire, don't give in to the terrorist. It makes it worse. With our own children, with our neighbors, with our cousins, our nephews, our nieces, our brothers, our sisters, with any Jew who was by Maimed HaSinai, how could you compare a chelik elakami ma'al mamish, a neshama, that has goodness in it? And if you don't see it, you have to clean your glasses, your vision. There's something wrong with your vision if you can't see the goodness. I've worked with hundreds of kids who were off the derech, Machal Shabbos, did very bad stuff, but I was able to see that that's their outer layers as it's brought down in the Sfarim HaKadoshim. Their etzem pnimius is a chelik elakami al mamish. And if that wasn't true, how do so many of them flip around? And so many of them are Shemitah mitzvahs. I have today between Home Sweet Home and TP almost 200 completely Shemitah mitzvahs. Why? And in Home Sweet Home it was so fast from being a dangerous ganef, person stealing. One of them stole $8,000 from the people who took him in from living off the streets, and from those people who took him in for a winter, he stole $8,000. Gamblers, people who did bad stuff, stealing from stores, a lot of averis, a lot of sins, a lot of unethical behavior. But I saw that they're just lost, they're just confused. Etzem of a Yehudi is a chelik elakami mal mamish. That's what we believe. And we believe that we were all by Har Sinai. And this is totally different. And this is what Yehuda did. We have to win over the chilonim, the ones who are not frum. And the ones who have hatred towards us, that hatred comes because they feel that we have hatred towards them. And as Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Zatzal said, and I just released the video clip, he said, we don't hate chilonim. And those who make it look like we do are doing a misjustice to Hashem by representing that we hate. We don't hate you. We're different. We have a belief. We wish you would be like us. Sure, you wish we would believe like you, but we're brothers. We don't hate you. And all the people who are taking down Klal Yisrael, forming organizations, were all people who struggled in their ruchnias, usually because of emotional pain, usually because of childhood trauma, and they were dealt with harshly, with rejection, with get out of here, you're not my child anymore, get out of the neighborhood. Many times these kids were at least felt that they were rejected. And the only way to win them back, it works even on an idol worshiper, it works on anybody, is kamayim apanim lepanim, so much love. Kein lev ha'adam la'adam. There's nothing that stops love. The Stipler said, who to me, I hope that's not insulting, but he didn't look like a very lovey-dovey guy. Person, tzaddik. He looks scary. Stipler said that when it says ki azo kamaves ahava, love is as strong as death, Shlomo Melech says. What does it mean? Love is as strong as death. It's like saying coffee is as strong as a car. Like the two separate things. Love is a feeling, death is death. Says the Stipler, just like when it's time to die. Nothing could stop the Malach HaMaves, so to ahava. When somebody is showering their feelings of love, nothing could stop it. Love is as strong as death, in that nothing could stop death, and so too nothing could stop real feelings of love. It melts all the walls, and it makes our enemies, stopping our enemies. It's very interesting. Ki azak hamavas ahava. I want to say that, and when somebody wants to die, you need a weapon that is as strong as somebody who wants to die. Those people who are in darkness, that they want to die, or they certainly don't want to live. They're not looking forward to the next day, and they have a feeling of they're suicidal, or they're certainly not enjoying life. The only thing that's going to be as strong as death, that's pulling them down into drugs and dysfunction and the underworld, the only thing that can compete with that, ki azak hamavas ahava, the only thing as strong as death is the weapon of love, and that's our weapon. Our weapon is love, and there's nothing that can beat it. There's nothing stronger, but it has to be real. It has to be real, otherwise it doesn't work. So now I have a question for you. My own question. If VAYIGASH Elov Yehuda approached the bench, like the pshat that Rashi brings down, that he was going to tell Yosef, we told him, I'm going to rip your head off, ki kamocha kaparoi, just like I can kill Paroi, I can kill you. I am the king. I am stronger than all of you. We, the Shvatim, they were very strong. We're going to rip you apart. So then I understand why the one who approached the bench is Yehuda. He's the strong one. He's the king. But if the one who was approaching the bench was the one who was going to shower these feelings of love, I don't think that would be Yehuda, the armor, the muscle, right? The majesty of Yehuda. I would say it should be, I don't know, maybe the musician, maybe Levi was more, lovey-dovey, right? Who was the most Kalbachi? Who's the most Nanach? Who's the most Chabad guy there? I'm sure one of the Shvatim were Chabad. 12, I'm sure one of them was. Right? So, why would you pick the strongest, mightiest one to do this thing of winning the person over with love? You know what the answer is? Yehuda was a king. He was a melech. Mayach shalat ala lev. The mind controls the heart. It says melech is mem lamed endachaf. Mayach lev kaved. That's where the taiva comes from, the kaved. So a melech is somebody whose mind controls the heart, and that controls his desires. When a person is aligned that way, he's a king. He's in full control. What's the opposite? Chaf lamed mem. It says when Balak told Bilam to curse Klal Yisrael, he said, I only have 1 second. What was he going to say? Kalem. Kalem means destroy them. So the Pshatim say, I don't remember who says this, it says Kalem is saying the Kaved should control the Lev, should control the Mayach. He only had a second, so the biggest curse to someone is to flip them around. That a person is addicted, or a person his desires are controlling his heart, and then his heart and his desires and his bad heart that is messed up is controlling his brain. Which we see people nebuch that way. And they have everything and they're so smart, and yet they have nothing because everything's out of whack. So instead of their mind deciding this is good for me, this is bad for me, and my feelings are for things that are good for me, wholesome living, frum living, good things, right? And that controls my desires are last, that when I'm supposed to, I do, when I'm not supposed to, I'm not, and then I feel like a person, I feel like a king. I feel like I'm in control. A person who's the opposite, he can be very, very smart, but he's out of whack. So he has a desire, and that throws his heart to chase after the desire, and then the mind follows that to figure out how to get the desire. So I want to tie it like this. It takes so much strength to be a king. Yehuda was not just the king in physical strength, he was the king in every sense of the word. He was a melech, so he was a melech in strength, in gvura, in physical gvura, and he was a king in control and self-control. Davka, Yehuda had to do this because it takes so much strength to go over to somebody. Just imagine like you're in Russia and there's a guard there and people, and he's a lowlife and he's beating up your friend and he's putting someone in prison and he's laughing at you and he's doing extortion. Just picture the biggest enemy, and you realize that the only way that I could save us is I have to love him. That takes so much strength. Perhaps that's why it had to be Dafka the king. That he was able to look at the situation and say, of course I want to tell my kid, get out of my house. But that's not good. That's not smart. I got to have mayach shalat ala lev. I have to have self-control. That's the only way that I'm going to make the situation better. I have to win over this quote-unquote enemy. How? With tremendous undeserved love. And no matter what averus the person is doing, no matter what immoral behavior this person is doing, unethical behavior, it doesn't matter. If the situation warrants it, I can win this person over by doing what? V'hikriv datai. I have to work on myself to bring my own mind and my ratzon closer to him. Lahavoi, ahavoi, to love him, lechabevoi. I see you doing that. I see parents doing that. Out there are parents that their kids are doing disgusting things and they're looking at their kids with disgust. Your kids are doing the same disgusting thing. But you know the power of kamayim apanim lepanim. Kain leva adam la'adam. You know that if he feels that you're disgusted from him, he gets worse. And you're over lifnei iver leisita and michshel alav in the Torah, says Reb Gershon Edelstein, Shlita zol zayin gesund, and the Pele Yayitz 250 years ago, and many other people in between. And it's a fact. If you look at them with disgust, they sin more. Then all of a sudden they have lahachas, things that they're doing on purpose. Your kids, you killed the lahachas. They're dysfunctional, they're messed up, they're sinning, they're messed up, yeah, but they're not doing anything to hurt you. Because you're winning them over with the amazing nuclear power of kamayim hapanim lepanim, kain lev ha'adam la'adam. And it has to work. And it worked on Yosef. And that's what you have to do. If you're looking at your brother, your sister, maybe you're embarrassed, maybe they stole from you, maybe you have good reason, but do you know what's going to happen to this person when everybody in their life looks at them with this love and you're cherished and you're beloved? Like Rabbi Uri Zohar Zatzal, he did this with his kids. He said this kid, he looked at him with disgust and he threw him out of the house. And as he was leaving over the threshold, he said, wait, stop. Because he said, at that moment, I realized that if the end of my mahalach of dealing with my son is that he's leaving my house, the safety of my house, that cannot be Ratzon Hashem. It's a tzaddik. He's a tzaddik. He's a gibar. He's a melech. He was melech shalat ala lev. He said it can't be Ratzon Hashem if he's leaving the house. A house is like Tevas Nayach. You never throw someone out of your house. You know what he's going to do out there is going to be so much worse. Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch says that the reason why Avraham Avinu wanted to keep Yishmael home is because he said, look how bad Yishmael is at home. Can you imagine how much worse he'll be if I throw him out? Yishmael, whatever. Okay, so look at my speech about that. Neither parent of Yishmael wanted to throw him out. Sarah was not his parent. Why did Hashem say it? It's not a teaching l'dairis, otherwise Yitzchak would have done it. Go to that speech for 16 reasons why it doesn't apply. But the bottom line is the Chazon Ish was asked the question, what about Avrami throughout Yishmael? And he said, Ein lemedim mikaydem matan Torah. You don't learn from before Matan Torah. By Matan Torah, every Yid was by Matan Torah. Every Yid was by Har Sinai. Every one of your children is a Chelik L'Kamim Al Mamish. We're not dealing with a Yishmael. And besides, people say, oh, like Yishmael, I'm getting sidetracked. People say, oh, like Yishmael. Yishmael was over Gimel Averis Chamuras. Was your kid? Yeah, like that family that told me, Nebuch, Rachmana Litzlan, they wanted to throw their kids out. Gimel Averis Chamuras. He had a chup, skinny pants, and he listened to Goyish music. That was his Gimel Averis Chamuras. Can you imagine? Even Treif and even Chilul Shabbos. That's not murder, and it's not what Yishmael did. And we're not dealing with Yishmael anyway, as the Chazon Ish said. So listen to this. Hashem oiz la'ama yitain. Hashem yivarech esami b'shalom. So I asked the question. These two parts of the pasuk don't go together. Hashem oiz la'ama yitain. Hashem gives his nation strength. Hashem yivarech esami b'shalom. Hashem benches his people with peace. I don't get it. If God is giving me strength, I don't need peace. You can give me war. We will win. You're giving me nuclear missiles, give me war. And if Hashem yivarech esami b'shalom, if Hashem is giving us peace, then why is he giving us strength? What do I need strength for if I'm going to have peace? And the answer is It's not talking about physical. Oh boy, it takes a lot of strength to have peace. Hashem oiz la'ama yitin, Hashem gives us strength in order for us to have peace in our homes. Because it's so much easier to say, you're not leaving my house like that. You're not walking out like that. I'm cutting you off. I'm not giving you money. You can't come into the house. All of the anger that doesn't work. It's so easy. You know how you know it's wrong? Because it's much easier to do than the other way. In this world, I'll give you a tip. Anything that's right is harder than anything that's wrong. If it's flowing out of you, and it's just, boom, it's there, you're not fighting your urges, you're about to make a big mistake. Because everything that's holy and beautiful is harder to do. Self-control. Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. Working on yourself. That's what all the tzaddikim said. The Nesiv Shalom writes, what do you do when you see your kid is getting involved in horrible averis? Kishiroyim eitzel yeled rach oy begil ha'ispagrus netia l'shchitus. Corruption. You catch him with an unfiltered iPhone. You catch him doing averis. Shchisus. Terrible averis. What should you do? People say, rules, consequences, boundaries, put your foot down, don't let him take advantage of you. All ideas from the Goyim. Nesiv Shalom, the holy Nesiv Shalom that everybody looked up as the mechanech of the last generation. He says very simple, Muchrachim lishleit, you must get a hold of, but he doesn't say the kid. He says yourself. Me, what did I do wrong? Yes, you mother and you father, especially father, get a hold of yourself. Because you can't do anything that's going to have a positive outcome if you're angry. Your anger will not solve the problem, it will make it worse. Muchrachim lishleit biruach. Okay, get a hold of myself and do what? He tells you. Ula'oirei love and awaken towards him. Ahava v'chemla. Love and mercy, beligvul, unlimited. Even more until that you had until now, until he was in trouble. The same thing. That's our only weapon. There is no other weapon. There's no story of a tzaddik that dealt with someone Machal Shabbos with rejection. There's no story of a tzaddik that dealt with somebody who was a mechutzif with throwing him out. And there's 6,000 stories that I have together, putting together a book. Looking for a sponsor. If you want a sponsor, let me know. Chelik Aleph is 800 pages, over 2,500 stories. It's going to be much more than 6,000 stories. Stories of every gadol, one after another. I could sit here all year and tell you story after story how GEDOLIM looked at the sinners and won them over with love and only love. And any part of you that is feeling anything other than love, it means you're human, you're a human being, you're embarrassed, you have pain. It's all valid, but don't kill your kid and give yourself more agmas nefesh because of it. It doesn't change the medicine. Reb Gershon Edelson Shlita said, Zuhi hatrufa hayichida. Kavod v'yedidus. What? I should give respect and honor and friendship to my daughter who's walking out without clothing in a frum neighborhood? I should go ahead and buy my kid clothing to dress like that. Oh, look at you. Oh, very nice. This is your girlfriend. You're eating treif, and I should have covered v'yedidus? Yeah? You have a better idea? He says that's the only way. I've seen it work. And the people doing things that don't work and that cause thousands of kids to be lost forever and that have blood on their hands with thousands of kids who've committed suicide or overdosed on purpose, which is suicide, they criticize us. We look liberal because we're following what the Chazon Ish said. We're following what the Torah tells us successfully. And they're failing, and they criticize us. You know what that's called? It's called doing something right. That's the way of the world. No matter how many Rabbanim say it, no matter how many Rabbanim have come here and sat here and told us what to do. And we always check. I don't do anything without every one of you has Das Torah, a letter, and we check. Anything which is Negei Torah, I say, ask your Rav. We're so careful. I'm the only person that has a crisis center for parents that cares about Das Torah. Betachlis, ultimate caring, that you have to sign a shtar, that you're not going to do anything without asking your Rav. And that your Rav had to write a shtar that he's going to answer and paskin every shayla. Who else even does that? And they criticize us that we're doing the wrong thing. And we, B'li and her, have never had one suicide. And we don't have one homeless kid. And we don't have one drunk on the street. And we don't have kids, psych ward, not full of our kids. Our kids are healing, our kids are home, and our siblings are doing great. They struggle. Siblings who have their own trauma, it's going to come out, it's going to struggle. And they'll criticize us. Hashem should help you. You should use the words of the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh. If you think that you're dealing with an enemy, even though it's really not an enemy, but somebody who is not listening to your rules, win them over with love. Win them over with ahava. You can attract more bees with honey. Never look down. Never be judgmental. Never say, ugh, I can't look at you or even think it. Adarabba. Do the winning solution of Yehuda. Be a melech. Have self-control. Work on yourself. V'hikriv da'atoi, work on yourself. Uritzainai, my mind, my ratzon, I'm going to see the good, the nekuda taiva, the goodness, they're all good. You know how we know? Because we have so many TP families that have loving eyes, that have learned to look at these kids in pain, not as rebels, but with love, and then they stop acting like rebels. We're getting the best out of them. And those other parents that are still throwing them out, and what are you doing, and how come you're doing, when are you going to change? And they're treating them with anger, they're creating rebels. But those kids are going to your homes. Our TP homes are oasis of safety, Ari Miklat in this world. So many of you have helped dozens of kids who were thrown out of home or were meant to feel unwanted at home. So many parents said, we didn't throw him out. You made him feel unwanted. That's not bad enough? And I understand why, because he broke all your rules. So that's why I say, take away the rules. But I have to have rules. But you lost the patient. Rules are great when the kid responds positively to the rules. Rules are great with a healthy person. Consequences are great, normal consequences for normal children, and they say, thank you, Daddy. Or even if they don't. But they're fine. But not when they jump out the window, not when they start being more chutzpahdik, not when they get worse. Rules aren't meant to break people. Rules are meant to lift people up, to give them control over themselves, to have boundaries. So they say, and they apologize, and they say thank you, or they realize, well, you're way off of that. And you're using your rules and consequences and boundaries to bury children. And how much money do parents pay for that advice? You should sue those people who gave you the advice that made your kid worse. It's a hefkervelt, because, we're not allowed to say, we're not allowed to share. Each of you, think about how much money you spent on advice that you ended up here in this office because it didn't work. And then I hear these guys who are failing the population, giving terrible advice. How do I know it's terrible advice? Because you wouldn't be here. I don't want to be here. I want all of you to be helped. If any of those people would have helped you, you wouldn't be here. So I know them. They're bad-mouthing me, and they're sending me people. Because they gave advice that failed miserably and you almost lost your kid. How many of your kids were almost dead because of their advice? And they're still criticizing me. And I have to undo the the advice that they did, and we are doing that. And then Avi's, like Avi's soft on crime. And meanwhile, we have less criminals. We have no criminals. And they're making so much problems. It's easy. You could see right away the anger. And when the kid doesn't respond well, and then the advisor gets upset and frustrated, it's all about their ego. They're using the wrong weapons. They're using the wrong tools. They're using the wrong medicine. They're using the wrong approach. Use the approach of the Nesiv Shalom. Muchracham lishleit beruach u'la'ir elav ahava v'chemla b'li gvul. Why can't you just listen to it? I know it's hard, but you have to listen. And the Chazon Ish said the same thing. I'll end with the story that I always say because it's the whole kol ha'Torah kula al regel achas. There was a boy that was off the derech, and he said, "Daddy, I want you to buy me a car." So the father said, "You know, son, I'll buy you a car. On one condition, that you don't drive it on Shabbos." Ask every Jewish person in the world, take a poll, and they will all tell you he did the right thing. I mean, what do you think? I'm going to buy you a car to drive a car on Shabbos with a car that I bought you? I'm going to reward bad behavior? I'm going to supply bad behavior? I'm going to give you a gun? It's like shooting yourself in the head. Machal Shabbos b'fehesia. I'm going to supply you with a gun? Of course not. Every or nearly every single normal thinking person would say, of course the father did the right thing. Ask your Rav. Ask your Chacham in your family who's telling everybody what to do, although he never helped save anybody ever. But he knows exactly what you're doing is wrong, and Avi's wrong, and this guy's wrong. Deis, there are many opinions. If you're so smart, there's so many kids dying every single day. Why don't you go save somebody? Why don't you get out of your chair, off your soapbox, and go out on the street and save 5 kids, and then please come and meet me and let me learn from you. Because I'm sure someone has something to teach me, and I'm always willing to learn. But no, they never brought anybody back. They never saved any kid at risk. But they talk and they say bad things about people who are at least, first of all, successful, but even just for trying. Where's the reward for trying? Thank you very much for trying, for giving your life towards something. Anyway, so ask that big mouth, the guy who doesn't stop talking, and he talks so fast, and you know why he can talk so fast? Because his mind hasn't been working for a few years already. So it's very easy to talk if you don't have to think about what you want to say. And ask your das Torahs, ask your Rabbanim. Ask them, can I give my son a car? He said he's going to drive it on Shabbos. Am I allowed to give him a car? He's going to, mamish, putting a gun in his hand. Father said, no way, no deal. And every normal person says, good boy, good job. Way to go, Dad. We don't support bad behavior. You want to kill yourself? You want to kill your afterlife? You'll do that on your own. We're not going to have any part in that. That's the face of the angry people. They always do that. Once someone does that, you should leave. Because that face is not necessary. Kishehegia el Rabbeinu HaChazon Ish. This story is brought down in Maaseh Ish. You can look it up yourself. I sent it around verbatim all the time. But also, maybe you'll say, well, this is 50 years old. Maybe, I don't know why it would be different, but Reb Gershon Edelstein Shlita, who's the direct link to the Chazon Ish, probably one of the last living links to the Chazon Ish. So sein gesund, he should be well. He brings it down several times in his shmuzin recently. They print his shmuzin, and he brings the story all the time. Kishegia el Rabbeinu, when it came to the Chazon Ish, he was meyayitz the father, he advised the father. He said it's kedai to buy him the car. It is worthwhile to buy him the car. Why? Kedei shetiskadel hashpa'asoi alav. 4 words. Kedei shetiskadel hashpa'asoi alav. So your influence will grow over him for the future. Everybody who thought about this question didn't think about influence at all. Didn't think about future at all. Didn't think about, what am I here for? What's my tafkid with this kid? Didn't think about, what about the next battles? So I don't buy him the car. So the relationship gets worse. And then, he's marrying a shiksa. I have to sit shiva. Because if you undo the spiral, you kept on doing things without thinking about, will it lower my influence or increase my influence? So yeah, says the Chazon Ish, You should buy him the car that he will drive on Shabbos b'Frahesia for a purpose. And why some people who are giving advice out there, why they don't see 2 steps ahead, I can't understand. Chacham eino b'roshai. Why people go for advice to somebody and they say, oh, I didn't expect things to get worse. What didn't you expect? This is not the end battle. This is not the last stand. You want them to do tshuva one day. You want them to get off drugs. You want them to stop hurting themselves. You got to keep them in. You got to have influence over them. Influence is based on your relationship. If I have 100% great relationship, calm relationship, then I have 100%, the air of influence is open. Look at Home Sweet Home. These kids moved in hating Yiddishkeit, cursing God. Many of them, b'pem malei, Rachmana litzlan, cursing God. And within a year, with Shomer Torah mitzvahs. Why? We never had Shachris Mincha Marav. There was no starim. There was no rules about Torah and putting on tefillin. Nothing. We just developed awesome relationships, loving relationships, liking, wasn't love, we just got to know them, based on accepting that they're not religious, and liking them and having fun with them, and chilling with them, and smiling with them, and hugging them, and after a couple of weeks they relaxed, and so we like you. And we invited them to our homes, we opened our homes, and we showered them with gifts, and with love, and with food, and with acceptance. And they flipped over. Kamayim apanim lapanim, kein leifa adam la'adam. I didn't like the fact that he's eating on Yom Kippur. I didn't like the fact that he was doing all these sins. I didn't like the fact that this guy was stealing from stores and was shoplifting. I didn't like this fact that this guy was threatening people. I didn't like what they were doing, but I had fun with them, and I liked them, and I saw their goodness. I saw past the bad behavior, and so did all the volunteers. They should be gebenched. And look at the schar we all have as a team. Untrained. Not one therapist trained us. If we would have gone to the therapy world, they would have told us, if I break a rule, blah, blah, blah. We didn't know. We didn't know anything. That's why it worked, because we didn't know. We just tried our hardest, and Hashem gave us siyata d'shmaya, and bing, bring, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. Look, not one of them went back to drugs. Not one of them went back to the street. Not one of them hates us. Not one of them is in any of these organizations that are against us. Not one. They would have been the Rosh Hashivas of these organizations. We won them over with love. True, real love. I really enjoyed spending time with them. Even though they weren't, of course, Avi, it's not your kid. Much harder when it's your kid. You're right. It's 1,000,000 times harder when it's your kid. But it doesn't change the medicine. It doesn't change what works and what doesn't work. Look at your kid, disgust. Your influence goes down. I'm not buying you your car, your influence goes down. The relationship goes down, the influence goes down. The relationship goes up, the influence goes up. And the same kid, without talking about Yiddishkeit, if you're the closest person in the world to them, and you are supplying them with everything that they want, ask your Das Torah. I hope they know the Chazon Ish. I find that the Das Torah are getting smarter and smarter with the sugya, because we really didn't know it 30 years ago. A dark cloud came out, and a lot of Rabbanim said things that I think today they would say different. But look at the Ziknei Adar, look at Shmuel Kamenetsky Shlita, Zol Zayin Gesund, Reb Gershon Edelstein Shlita, Zol Zayin Gesund. There's not one thing I ever said that goes against what either one of them said, or told me, or told other people. Rav Minsker Rebbe Zatzal, Rabbi Yosef Rosenblum Zatzal, so many tzaddikim, over 90. They said 100%. Unless you're not allowed to. And so many people think they're not allowed to do things. Like someone told me, I couldn't buy my kid treif. I said, ask your Rav. I don't decide. One of the Gedolei Adar, I have it on video. He said, you're allowed to. We don't even know the halacha, so we just imagine, and it's difficult, so we just would rather say no. The bottom line is, the only way to save anybody is with hashpa'ah. Hashpa'ah is influence. Influence is based on relationship. So think hard. What did the Chazon Ish mean when he told a parent to buy a car for a kid who said up front, I will drive this car on Shabbat? And he said, Kedai to buy it. It's worthwhile. For the long haul. Kedei shetiskadel hashpa'asoi olav. And all you people who commented didn't even think about hashpa'ah, didn't even think about the future. The GEDOLIM thought about the future. Kedei shetiskadel hashpa'asoi olav. There's another war coming up around the corner. Is he going to fast Yom Kippur? If you have a great relationship, the influence will be there. More mitzvahs will happen sooner. No question. Tshuva me'ahava will happen. Be'ezus Hashem. So that's the whole thing. The whole TP al regel achas. Kedei shetiskadel hashpa'asei alav. Anything that brings you closer, that's mutar al pi Torah, you mechuyev to do. It's hard. It's difficult. Muchrachim lishleit beruach, says the Nesiv Shalom. You're not a baby. Get a hold of yourself. You're dealing with something that's not like a kid who got an 80. You're talking about a kid mechal Shabbos, a kid eating treif, a kid cutting themselves with anxiety, panic attacks, depression, suicidal. We don't know if they're going to get married. They say they're gay, they're lesbian. These are huge problems. You got to get a hold of yourself in order to save your child and start to follow the true Torah way to save lives. Not what we're getting from the therapists that are trained by the Goyim. How did the therapists know what to do? Because they went to school. The school told them. The school taught them. They're very good at school. And the school said, when you have a teenager who's rebellious, rules, consequences, boundaries. It doesn't work on them either. They're also changing. But let's say it works on them. How does the school teacher, the professor, know what to do? Simple. They did studies. Who did they do studies on? Jewish kids? Chelik l'kamimal? Kid with parents like you, and grandparents, and family units, and cousins, and Hanukkah, and Purim, and Pesach, and shul, and camp, and pizza shops. Not the Goyish pizza shops, our pizza shops. Shawarma, Chulent, Lel Shishi. Come on, they're doing research on a different bria, a whole different situation, a whole different family unit, and it's not working for them. I challenge Dr. Phil. His way is absolutely not working, but he has no way of knowing that love works. It looks weak, so he'll say, but we're doing this already. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families doing it successfully. Let's not lose more kids. Let's wake up and let's realize that when you feel like someone is your enemy, somebody's not listening to you, you have to win them over. Kamayim apanim lepanim kein leva adam l'adam. Vayigash elav tati. Vayigash elav mami. Vayigash elav brothers and sisters, Babi and Zaidi. If everybody can approach this hurting, difficult child that seems like an enemy, who's dying for acceptance and love, Baruch Hashem, I always say, can you imagine if they didn't really want acceptance and love? I would have no advice for you. But under all of this rebellion, the more rebellion and hatred you're getting, it's a result of the way you treated this kid. They weren't born with that. They messed up. You acted with rejection and anger and frustration, and meanwhile, you created an enemy. You want to get rid of the enemy? Get a hold of yourself. Be strong. Hashem oiz lama yitin. Hashem should give you a lot of strength. Hashem yivarech. Hashem should bench all of you with peace. Peace of mind. Peace in your homes.